Hello everyone, I'm Santiago, and today I'm gonna be testing Resident Evil 4 Remake Separate Ways DLC on the Steam Deck. So before starting the game, I'm going to tell you a few tweaks you should make to get the best experience, mostly regarding FPS caps and a mod called REFramework. We're not talking about upscaling, I'll let you know why after this, so let's get out of the game and set the mod up. Okay guys, so now in desktop mode, first follow the link in the description for this mod called REFramework. This makes every mod work on the game, that's how you enable them, that's how you do the important stuff. So go to files and download this one, this is important. So once you download it, keep it on your download folder, go to Steam, right click, Resident Evil 4, manage, browse local files. This will take you to Resident Evil 4's main folder. Now make sure to right click on downloads, open a new tab, and here's REFramework that you just downloaded, so open that up. And you'll find this DLL file called dinput8.dll. So it's just a matter of dragging this file into RE4's folder, so let's just do that. We drag it in. It won't ask you to replace anything because I already did it. So yeah, so dinput8 is a new file, and since it's a new file, a new DLL, you need to manually tell Proton to use it. So right click on the game, properties, and add this line, and you need to put %command %, and with this you can launch the game and the mod will work. But since I'm going to show you first a 30 FPS cap, instead of using the built-in FPS cap that has lots of latency, I added this other line, MANGOHUD config FPS limit 30. You can put whatever number that you want. Again, to avoid latency with the FPS cap, so way better than the one on SteamOS. Back on gaming mode, now open the game here, go to the controller, and in here, in the back grip buttons, map one of the back keys to the keyboard, to the, numpad, the insert key. This is the key to bring over the menu for the mod. So once you have that, launch the game. See you in there. Okay, so the game decided to load. So remember that back button that we set for the insert key? If you press on it, this will show up. Again, use your finger. The menu might be a little bit small, but you can change the size very easily. So if you go into configuration, you can increase the font size and increase the size of the window like this, so it's more touchscreen friendly. Then, what do I recommend? First of all, in the config section, check this box, remember menu open close state. So when you relaunch the game later on, you don't have to reconfigure anything, and this window will close by itself. You don't have to interact with it anymore after this. Performance, nothing. Go to graphics, enable this, RE4 scope tweaks. When you use a scope in Resident Evil 4, it basically adds another viewport, so you go from 30 or 40 to 15 FPS, absolutely unplayable. This allows you to lower the resolution of the scope, so I left it at 50% resolution with interlaced rendering. So instead of dropping into the 50s, you drop into the upper 20s, so completely fine. You can also remove the black bars on the top and bottom of the screen, but I'm not doing that because of performance purposes. It decreases performance because more pixels. Then, well, if you want to disable the vignette at the edges of the screen, you can do it as well, which I think is pretty cool. So I'm going to disable the vignette. And you can also customize the FOV, but changing this will affect performance, so I'll keep it like that. So yeah, those two things. Camera with vignette or vignette disabled, graphics with the scope tweaks, interlaced rendering, 0.5. Scope quality, and in configuration, remember this menu. So now you press the insert key you set up before, and boom, you're ready to start playing. So let's go into the options. My first configuration is a 30 FPS configuration, which I already showed you the launch command, so MANGOHUD does it outside of the system. 800p, quality FSR2. Trust me, I tried native resolution, but it was impossible to get 30s consistently without massively downgrading the settings. Textures 2 gigs. All these like this. This like this. The reflections, I disabled them because while they look good sometimes, they're pretty distracting. Very grainy, especially at this resolution. Motion blur on, just because I'm doing 30 FPS. You can turn it off if you want to. And Reason's intense lighting quality allows us to have shadows indoors, so we're keeping that on. Outdoors a couple times this will affect performance, but I already made this configuration to keep that in mind. So yeah, without further ado, it's time to get into separate ways. This also is my configuration for the main game, by the way. No frame rate limit, no allowed tearing, because we're locking it to 30 with a console command. So yeah, let's get into it. Welcome to Separate Ways. This is at the end of chapter 3, or chapter 2, yeah, chapter 3. I'm going to be chased around by Mendes and lots of villagers, and there will be rain and stuff, so it's basically the most demanding part, the worst case scenario. And as you can see, right now, it's okay. I'm not using the upscaling XeSS mod because, well, basically that affects the UI, and being such a low resolution, the UI is basically unusable. That's why I'm not using the upscaling mod. So again, why am I showing this part? Because it's pretty taxing on everything, especially the GPU. So what I have to do is run this way. Many villagers are chasing after me. There is vegetation. So as you can see now, my GPU is basically maxed out. So this is one of the worst case scenarios. So I accounted for getting at least upper 20s, like you see here. And I know that the frame times don't look good, but there we go. See, upper 20s at worst. But again, this is just this section of the game. You keep running, you're supposed to run away, you'll be fine. And then there's another very heavy place that is also present in the main game, that is in the main village square with that bonfire. That produces shadows, and there's rain at the same time. So that's the perfect stress test. Again, remember, stress test. This is the worst of the worst that you can encounter, so I'm taking that into account. Most of the time you'll be into the 30s. And I know that the frame times don't look particularly great, but the latency in comparison to using the SteamOS FPS lock is massive. So there's almost no latency. I can play with mouse and keyboard just fine. So again, the thing here is this. See, when I use the scope now, instead of the mid-teens, I'm in the upper 20s. Mid to upper 20s. That's because I lowered the resolution of it. Let's shoot. So here the issue is the amount of effects on screen. But again, this is my quality option. That means highest resolution we can muster, but locked to 30 FPS. So we get the indoor shadows, the dynamic, better dynamic lighting. So overall, people chasing quality, you'll be mostly into the 30s, worst case scenario upper 20s in select scenes such as this one. And it looks pretty good. I would say this is the way I would play the game personally on the deck, just because of the smaller screen, but again, it's a pretty demanding game for the Steam Deck, especially in these more heavy areas. So let's now try to do a 40 FPS cap. First I'll show you handheld, how it looks on your hands. So let's do that. Alright, now in handheld mode, so the moment I was just a second ago. And as you can probably see by scale of my hands, the game looks great on the smaller screen. It looks horrible with the capture card because you're looking at it on a bigger screen. But on your hands like this is way better. That's kind of the point, right? That's why I'm like... Whoop, I died. That's why I like doing this. So since we were in the demanding part, let's now do something else. Let's do a less demanding part so you can see overall performance, not only in the difficult part. So again, drops in the upper 20s. When you're aiming down a scope, it's testing the mid 20s, which is better than being in the mid teens. So this is... Let's go to the church. There's many enemies over there. But as you can see, it's completely fine here. It's the nighttime part when you're being chased by Mendes and many ganados, where the problem lies. So they're waiting for the gates to open up.
They're waiting for the gate to open. How open?
So let's explode them. And again, when using the scope, we are at half resolution there with the mod that we included. Oh, I didn't see her. Jesus. And also, if you decide to not use motion blur, you're going to get a small performance uplift. So, yeah. Again, this is the way that we play the game on the Steam Deck. I know, oh, 30 FPS, oh my god. Well, it's Resident Evil 4 Remake on a portable machine. Get over it. So let's now do a lesser quality mode and try to aim for that 40 FPS goodness. So let's go. Before we do that though, remember, if you're doing the 40 FPS thing, go back to the launch options, remove the FPS limit that I set. So keep it like this so the mod works. And let's launch the game again. So be right back. Alright guys, so now for the 40 FPS attempt, 800p, VSync on, and make sure in this menu that your refresh rate is set to 40, so the game locks itself to 40 with this. Allow tearing, because VSync is covered over here. Performance FSR2, yeah, I know, 400p. It's okay, the smaller screen actually is surprisingly good looking. And use these settings. We basically sacrificed everything except in textures. So no ambient occlusion, no reflections, less physics for the ganados. And there's no dynamic lights indoors, which again, if you're targeting 40s, big sacrifices need to be made. So yeah, let's see if I can change my mind in the demanding part. So let's run away. Oh, wrong way. Oh, move away. Okay. So again, huge sacrifice to resolution, huge sacrifice to visuals, but it still looks pretty good. I'm pretty surprised on how it looks on low settings. I think as long as... let me heal. As long as the textures are good quality... Ooh. I'm not paying attention. The thing is, I never played with a controller. I'm more of a keyboard and mouse guy. Okay guys, I made it away a little bit ahead. The part where I died. Again, the demanding part, this is one of them. In this DLC. Oh, come on. Jesus. Break off. Thank you. Oh, so close. Yeah, I don't know why the grapple at that position, it doesn't allow me to grapple. That's fine. So again, same test as before. We'll look back. Yeah, we drop into the upper mid 30s in this section. So in the worst case scenario, mid 30s should be realistic. Yeah. So as you can see, very hard to get into that 40 FPS range in the bad part, but again, you're supposed to run away in this part. So it shouldn't be a huge issue. So let's go to the next part that we tested, which is nighttime, rain, and ganados. So now we have the scope once again. That is at half resolution. So if we use the scope again, we drop frames, but it's not as bad as before, although the resolution of the scope is way lower, but we're into the 30s, so massive improvement in my book. So again, if you care about graphics, do the 30 FPS configuration. You get a higher resolution, more consistent image, plus better visuals. But honestly, even on performance FSR, the game looks pretty soft, but on the smaller screen, it's completely fine. But again, see this, when you're targeting 40s, it's very hard to stick to 40 in these places. It drops into the 30s over here. Well, when using the scope actually, so it's kind of cheating in that regard. But as you can see, it can drop into the mid-30s. In sections like these. So yeah, that's why I rather have the 30 FPS one with better graphics. Just because it feels more consistent. 40s is way better, don't get me wrong. But I don't feel that we're consistently hitting that target. Unless at least in the demanding scenes. If you play the rest of the thing, it shouldn't be like that all the time. So let's go to another save that is in the least demanding parts, more of a moment-to-moment gameplay that you'd always be getting, which is here. So this is more like what should be the norm for most of the game. So let's get there, and as a bonus after this I'll show you the castle section. I think you'll enjoy that. So as you can see, the frame time's way better. So again, most of the DLC should be 40s with this, but the parts where it drops is pretty rough. So up to you and your preferences. And remember that the scopes are the worst thing that can happen to you in this game. Because you'll drop frames quite significantly. But you no longer drop into the 15 FPS range like before. So that's a big win with the mod, in my opinion. I would say it's necessary to enjoy the game to get that mod. Glasses. What? Okay. So yeah, as you can see, these parts are fine. The only thing when using a scope, but that's okay. So let's jump into the castle. Alright, welcome to the very start of the DLC.
Not exactly, but it's safe.
I'm just going to speedrun through it.
Know the terms.
We're good. We're good. What do you want with it anyway?
But as you can see indoors, the Steam Deck doesn't care. And we're skipping everything, of course. Okay, so now there's more effects going on. Okay, which is the real one? You. Uh-oh. Okay, got him. As you can see, fine all the way through. Here we don't even have a scope, so Let's head outside very quickly, take a look at the castle very quickly, and let's see how it goes. But as you can see, if you're a person that wants 40 FPS, it's doable. Just in some places, it won't be at 40 all the time. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's where I need to go.
Stick to the high ground. You have the means.
But even looking at the entire castle, let's now wreak some havoc. Which means, let's run and pretend that there's no enemies.
And bring it to me.
Understood. But maybe a little sightseeing first.
Run! Again, this is on purpose.
I'll need to disable the catapults.
We get explosions as well.
A little picture.
But with less vegetation, less enemies, it makes complete sense. Sorry guys, my voice. But it's nice to see that a big part of the game is fine. Okay, getting through. Don't mind me. I'm pretending to be a speedrunner.
Here.
So yeah, I'm pretty good. So that's chapter 1. You can, if you play it correctly, you're not going to finish it that quickly. It's just because I know where things are. So don't be scared.
So he wants me to retrieve. Almost at the church.
Now we're back into the village. But again, less demanding part. So this is what most of the game should look like. So conclusion time. If you like graphics, so closer to native, plus better shadows, more shadows from light sources, and mostly consistent 30s with drops into the mid-20s sometimes when using the scope. Then use the first configuration. And if you don't care and you just want 40s with okay visuals, but 50% resolution scale, which on the smaller screen still looks pretty good. And in demanding parts is going to drop into the 30s, but again, very few moments. Then you also have this option. Personally, I like to stick to the 30 FPS one because I look at the Steam Deck screen very closely. But now I'm kind of changing my mind. The 40 FPS configuration feels very good to play. Just make sure to enable the mod that lowers the scope resolution, and you'll be good to go. So you have options over here. Again, being portable Resident Evil 4, it blows my mind that it can be this good. Oh great, pretty cool. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks again to Capcom for providing a code for this DLC. It's available now on Steam if you want to check it out. You need to have the base game. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
Quite